Good morning, Tava Baird.
Good morning, Jennifer Taylor. How the heck are you?
I'm doing well, and welcome everyone to another episode of Mystical Musings podcast. I'm excited because I have a bunch of questions for Samael.
And we're going to see how much we can get answered here. Full disclosure, as is our norm, we've already been talking for like an hour or so.
Yeah, almost an hour and
We're,
15 minutes now.
well, by the time you hear this, the Power of Story event at Green Hill Cemetery will have happened already. And so we were spending some time talking about what happens when you play a whole bunch of sound healing music in the center of a 17-acre cemetery, that it
From
wasn't
inside
going
a
to
mausoleum.
inside a mausoleum, that it isn't just going to be our living guests who are coming, but Samuel was pointing out to us that we could expect a flash mob of the
Disembodied.
non-living.
Yeah,
Well,
which I feel like really they're very much living, they're just not embodied. So I guess we should call
right.
them disembodied, maybe.
Yes, yes, we have disembodied. Yeah, because that encompasses both people who were recently embodied and those who never have been. So this also brings us around to a topic on portals and gates, and Jen's got some questions. So we're going to see what we can do, but if you don't mind kicking us off with some music. Oh, I've been moving so much stuff in my environment that with this week, I would just love some song from you.
Absolutely. I have so much energy moving through me from our conversation of anticipating the power of story at the mausoleum. And I realized that for anybody, before we head into probably a whole different direction, I just wanted to specify that Samael did say how you do that is that he will hold that space and they will stay at the steps. So everybody in the power of story, everyone in the mausoleum going through that whole deep transformative experience will be in a completely clear slate. And he specified that Archangel Michael would be deciding who could come in and who could not, as far as guides and angels and all of those sorts of things. So it is going to be very, very held, and that we actually don't have to do anything in that regard because they've got it completely under control. So it will not go the direction that it did when we were in the inn. It will be very different. Since you guys will have just heard that episode last week, Samuel made a point of saying that this would be different because I wanted to have the experience of feeling their presence and having them around, the disembodied that is. And so Samuel did not ask them to step out. So I just wanted to clarify that for everybody before we went any further so we didn't leave anybody hanging and wondering, because it makes sense that you would think that when all of that crowd comes in, it would be a lot like our experience at the end, but this
Right.
is very different. Okay, so now I will prepare and get into
Fantastic.
a song channel sort of place.
That song was lovely. It was
Thank
really
you.
lovely.
It was really interesting. I feel like I may have just opened a gate that it was like I constructed some sort of thing or opened something. Like it was very clear physically what I was doing and what
Yeah.
was happening. So I'm very interested to see what Samael said.
Well, he said, gate, doorway, edge, state, portal, places of going and coming, places of separation and joining, place where time and distance are marked. When did they leave? When did they arrive? Births and deaths, fragmentation and union. A gate is where things break again and again and again as you move forward and back. Breaks are signs of evolution. Let me say that again for one who is listening. Breaks are signs of evolution. And evolution is also revolution. The cycle repeats, opens and closes. A wave is but half. I've never been very good at geometry, and I feel like we're starting to get into geometry, so I'm starting to panic a little bit.
So it's really interesting that he said that because one of the questions that I've had for him lately also involved what he called incarnations, where I would put my forehead to the floor with my eyes closed and I would see kind of into this abyss and be operating in this other realm that way. And that he was saying that it was revolutions forward and over and over and over and over.
Yes,
That, like, while I was physically still and with my forehead on the floor, physically acting out what I could, that in my light body, I was like a baby in the womb doing almost like forward rolls over and over. And he was calling those incarnations. And
yes.
recently, I've had a number of instances in the stone circle that I made where I'm doing something like that, only I'm arched backwards and it's like doing backflips over and over. And I've been wondering, what is that then? Like, what is the difference in this new thing that I'm doing by going backwards? It's like I'm bending over backwards and then just continuing over and over. And he was just talking about evolution. And when he said revolution and going over and over, I was thinking, Oh, goodness. I feel like this is all going to be tied together.
Okay, hang on. Something is just becoming really clear. He's talking about something that I've been asking him about for a while. Going to be in both at once while embodied. This is, oh, God. Ah,
I'm so excited.
holy cow. Okay. Um, he just said this is a second lesson in demonics. I hate to ask you to sing again right after you just sang, but is there any way you could
Yeah,
sing again? Right.
sure.
He is talking about how to be in the and in the or at once while embodied, which is something I've been trying to get out of him for 6 months.
Oh, yes, absolutely. All right,
Okay.
I'll start
Okay.
switching things
Oh,
around again and I'll
this
start
is going to
singing.
be geometry. No.
Oh, which is so interesting because I had a geometry thing too that came up with that
Oh,
Hecate thing on the in the stone circle.
oh. Hold on, Samuel. I gotta get, let me get the music. Or to be in both places at once while embodied, the and the or. All right, kids, buckle in for this one.
Woo! I can't wait.
Oh, I have a feeling we're going to be spending the next couple of podcasts picking this apart.
Wow.
Okay, let me sum up. Um, well, I have 3 pages that should be read without summing, but um, I don't think we've really gotten into this. And so before we go into what Samael is going to talk is called the second lesson of demonics, allow me to briefly explain the first lesson to people who aren't familiar with this. So, one of the things I teach something called Lilithian demonics. And basically, what it is Samael teaches me, and then I pass the information on. So I am learning right ahead I'm learning with everybody. I'm just a couple of steps ahead because I'm getting things from him and then passing them on. Um, Samael says that a demon is not a little horned entity, that demonics is actually a philosophy and a magical practice, that it's a science, essentially. And that science and philosophy can be used together in magical practice. And the first thing that he talks about, and anybody who's played with the deck of rebellion have seen these concepts, is the concept of the and the or, right? And so one of the very first things that he talks about in trying to get people to comprehend the magical practices that he does and that Lilith does, which are ethical demonics, is to have this concept of and or. And he uses an illustration that if we look at our society around us, we see people with an and mindset. Those people have empathy. They are open minded. They tend to say, let's include this in our considerations. If you've ever been in improv, you know that the key to good improv is to say yes and, right? To to open up the possibilities. But then there's also an or mindset, which is exclusionary, which tends to put people in boxes and want to confine them there, which tends to make harsh judgments without having all the information. Now, unfortunately for us in an incarnated body, our brains, and science knows this is an accepted fact. Our brains are set up to operate on an or mindset. Humans like to put things in categories. It's how we make sense of the world around us. We give things names. And even when you're a little child, you're taught to sort things by color or size or to put things into categories. When we look at the animal kingdom, we've got everything broken down by, you know, genus and species and all of that. We like to break things down. It is what gives us basic components to then build with. We learn to break things down and then we learn to build them. Reading is done in a very similar way. You learn all of the letters first, the broken down parts, and then you learn to put them together to build something up, right? So our brains have a natural tendency towards the or while we're incarnated in a body. But in between lives, when we're there among the unembodied, it's very much an and mindset. We are all here together. There are not as many divisions as we think. We are free of our bodies and a brain that wants to process things that way. So, in early first level demonics, there's always this encouragement that you have a tendency to be in the or, but let's try to move our society and ourselves as close to the and as we can. It allows for more possibility, it allows for more discovery, it allows for more compassion, right? So there's that. But one of the questions that always came up to me was okay, but if you have the concept of and, And includes everything. Doesn't that mean that and also must encompass or? Because if and is everything, or is a part of everything. So that means if you truly want to operate in an and mindset, you must also learn to understand the or mindset, and how the heck do you do that while staying in a state of and? So here is where the answer is finally starting to come through right here on the podcast. Here is what he has to say about this. Incarnations are oscillations, the and the or. How to be in both at once while embodied. This is a second lesson in demonic. We have discussed the concepts of the and the or within the scope of mindset, inshallah. How an inclusive or and mindset leads to progress, whereas an or exclusionary mindset often does not. I say often, of course, because divine pattern, which evolves, is not fixed, and we want always to leave open possibility in our language. It is what feeds hope. But, you have said, for something to truly be and, must it not encompass or as well? Why, yes, and transform it, we hope. But how to begin? If and leaves out mostly nothing, must it not have certain ors in its composition? How then can one be both in an and location or state and also grow to encompass the or? Let me stop from what he's saying here for a second, to show the importance of this. If you are a ruler or a boss or just anybody who's in charge of other people, you often have to make decisions. And a decision is an or pathway. We have to choose A or B. You want to do it from an and mindset, that is, with as much compassion and allowing as much possibility for growth as possible, right? So ors, we can't escape ors entirely because our concrete world requires that certain decisions can be made. Okay. So there's a little bit of a problem there, is that if we really want to dwell in and we have to deal with or, how do we explore the possibilities or encompass the or without losing the state of and we are also trying to be in? Here's what he has to say. Oscillation is the key, vibration between the two states. Slowly at first, and then dancing faster and faster until the two are integrated. While still unique, they are indistinguishable to the heart and the eye. Green is yellow and blue, and on some level, the yellow and blue still exist, for nothing is destroyed, only transformed, reclaimed. Lilith brings you into this state, makes you see that it is possible, soothes you, and then Agrat, the rooftop dancing day, begins to shape things once you are ready, blends, reclaims, sorts the wheat from the chaff. An incarnation, a revolution, is an attempt to blend two halves of revolution become one. I don't know that that answers anything as so much as it generates about 80 more questions.
So it helps me in terms of the revolution, the things that he calls incarnations, where I'm tumbling like forward over and over when I have my forehead like on the ground, because by calling them incarnations but then calling them oscillations, the oscillation is helpful when I'm doing those rotations. Like I'm blending the things that seem like polarities and blending them into something where something else is possible, because I'm blending two things that seem like they were opposing, but blurring the lines between them so that new possibilities can open. So it seems like when I'm doing those forward revolutions and creating those oscillations, I'm almost dissolving the barriers and opening to new possibilities. And when I think about it at that point, that's when I'm down there and I'm looking into the void, and then I start being called to maneuver things, to move things around. It's like this goes here and put this in this slot, and then it goes all around and comes out somewhere else, or there are interactions or things that take place while I'm there. And it's like that's the place where and or dissolve into and.
You just said singer, you are dissolving the edge state. And here is I don't know if you can see, this is, I'm going to explain it because people listening won't be able to see. So I have two vertical lines. One is labeled and one is labeled or. And there's a wave moving back and forth between them.
It's like a
So,
serpentine line touching one, curving over to, and then the curve touches the other line, then curving over, and the edge of the curve touches the other line, and back and forth like that.
and he is also saying that this movement on the edge, what, Samael? That there is a reflection in each of these and or states that are closer to circles, to cycles, to revolution. So you're not just moving in the edge state, but you're actually pulling the edges closer to each other by, like, imagine that okay, so let's go back to his color analogy. Imagine you have the state of blue and you have the state of yellow. Now, this is going to get messy here. But imagine you've painted half of your floor blue and half of your floor yellow, and you start dancing on the line between them. As you twirl or revolve and dance back and forth, some of the blue paint on one foot is going to get moved into the yellow. And some of the paint that's sticking to your yellow foot is going to get moved into the blue. As you move on this edge state, you are going to start to blur the boundary between blue and yellow and create green. It wasn't there before, or at least the possibility of it was there, but you then start manifesting it. If you were to twirl or revolve in there, you are mixing, you are blending, you are pulling these things together. You are creating, right? Using this pattern. So if we talk about this in terms of magic, taking an energy from one place or state and one with another and bouncing back and forth between the two, blending them, revolving between them. You left your blue foot on the blue side and your yellow foot on the yellow side, nothing's going to happen. You got to spin around to mix things, right? So we're seeing this movement, this evolution to bring together a creative burst of something that's new. So what he's telling us, so Samael says that there are 8-day teachers, right? That he is the first one, Samael, that he is the word. He's the one who sort of calls you to study demonics, right? And then he introduces you to Lilith. And what Lilith does is basically, he says Lilith sings, right? It's calling of a greater form. It's bringing in the divine, right? Moving beyond just the word or the beginning or that state of introduction. It's calling in the divine, soothing you, and helping to restore your worth, that you really are worthy of moving forward because you are divine. So Lilith is this discovering of your own divinity, your reclamation of it in her song. And then she introduces you to Agrat Bat Malat. And Agrat, after you've been nice and soothed now, Agrat is described as a dancer, right? It's said in some of the old texts that she dances while Lilith sings. What she's starting to do is say, all right, kid, now we're going to create stuff. Think back to when you were your most creative, when you were a child, right? When you first came in and there was nothing but possibility and hope before you, when everything was worthy of discovery. When you were a child, you really got that creative engine going that would carry forward into the rest of your life. And what she is encouraging you to do then is start to revolve, to spin, to blend those colors, to get creative and start to manifest something new out of the separate pieces of the gifts and talents that you arrived here with and all of the things that happened in your history with the divine being that Lilith has reminded you that you are. So, our first lesson in demonics came in with Lilith, with, hey, I know you're living in an world. I know you're living in an or mindset and state, but I want you to start thinking about the possibility that and exists. And then once you've got that down and you understand and or, now you start oscillating on the edge between those two to understand and comprehend or and celebrate the humanity that you are, blend it further with the divine so that you can bring about an expansion and a transformation of the parts of the or that do not serve. I hope I said that decently.
I think so. I realized I started dissociating at one point near the end, but I did get, I think, what you were saying there because I was trying to take that and blend it into then how I use it in healing sessions.
So the flipping around that you're trying to do, right? What Samael is essentially saying here is that every time you start to rotate, when you are trying to turn yourself upside down in these, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, the dog is losing her mind.
That's
I'm
fine.
going to go put her outside. I'll be right back.
I'll give you a sense of what I was thinking, and then
Yes.
you can tell me how it lines up with your understanding of what Samael was saying. Was that so, in the sense of being in a healing session for someone else, when I start doing those incarnations, those forward rotations that he's saying, or the revolutions and the oscillations, like let's say they're whatever is going on with somebody when it comes to healing, it likely still involves the place that they were and their false beliefs around it and their woundings and their traumas and all of those kinds of things. And then it also involves the pure essence of who they are, their higher self that is trying to get through all of those other things, their guides, their inherent worth and divinity that seems in opposition to all of those things, our personal experiences, our culturally created selves, our wounded selves that have gone through all of these things and that are carrying around and holding certain stories. And so when I'm doing those oscillations, then those incarnations, I'm then blending maybe the edge between those two things, their divinity, their wholeness, their inherent truth, with the things that seem in opposition to it that are currently maybe operating as barriers or obstacles or things that would be hindering the merging of those things and the manifesting of who they are and what they can be and how they can exist in this world. And so, in that, then I'm blending those two and bringing together a manifestation of something new that incorporates both what they've experienced and the truth of their divinity and their their wholeness, wholeness and
Well,
health.
so Samael says you are very close. Now he's going to put a slightly different day spin on it. So this is his perspective. You don't have to adopt this at all. But he says dance between where they are and the all. And that's basically what you just said is they're coming into the session often with either the trauma of an or mindset or um, their beliefs are sort of still locked up in that place, right? So you're going to be dancing and singing to blend these things. He says, when you sing, call for balance for the things that do not serve. There is no purity. So I think a lot of times when we're doing healing sessions or things for people, we have this idea of there's this wonderful, beautiful, pure state that you are in between lifetimes. And he says, nobody's pure in that state because how do you define purity? That the concept of purity is whatever I want it to be. Whatever people tend to say, well, that's impure. That's their judgment of a thing, right? So he says, dirt or soil has a purpose, call for a purpose for the soil. So I'm going to try to say this well because this is sort of a new concept for me right now that I'm hearing as we podcast. Okay. So imagine that I have taken a piece of laundry outside and it is a beautiful white lace curtain that I have just oxy cleaned back to the Stone Age, right? And it's lovely. And I go and I hang it up on the line. And as I do, it brushes against the tree and it gets dirt or some soil on it, or maybe a bit of bark or a leaf. And my brain, which is a human brain, tends to go, oh, that doesn't belong there. That's marring the beautiful lacy surface that I just cleaned. I've got to pick that off. It's bad, right? Because it's not my goal. And so I tend to pull it out. And then I might consider the curtain healed or something like that, right? Or I consider it fixed. But I think what he's saying is that all of these things that don't serve in people's energy, sort of like that concept that a weed is just a plant in the wrong place, right? It's not that that soil has no value, it just doesn't belong on the path that the person is on right now. So he is suggesting not just to try to eliminate that thing or get rid of it, but to also hold it for a time and say, this bark, this tree, this soil, it's in the right place. It can make things grow. It is part of the natural cycle of things. It is here and it came here for a reason because my beautiful curtain interacted with nature, it interacted with the wild. I would like to call for balance for this thing. I would like to call for the thing that I view as impure to be balanced and be in its right place. Instead of pulling out the dandelion and saying, this is bad because I want my garden to be nothing but roses. That dandelion has its own life. It has its own medicine. It has its own process. It's a food, right? It is a way we make wishes. Even things that are very what we would consider bad have a purpose. There's something that they're there for. If we go back to what he said when you first sang, breaks are a sign of evolution. So that when you are trying to literally flip yourself over in these healing sessions, you are trying to blend or integrate, not separate out something that is there in the hope that it's part of this person's story. It cannot be erased. But it's like a puzzle piece sitting in the wrong space. It's not helping the picture to emerge. And so that in healing, we might try instead call for a fitting of that puzzle piece so that it can go from being separate to being part of the whole while still retaining its little boundaries of orness made it what it was in the first place. That's a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying. Okay, so with that understanding, it's not a like where I'd initially described, there's all of the stories and the things that we see as barriers or false beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the part of us that knows better, that's more connected to the all and that higher perspective of we are divine, we are whole, really. When we stop looking at all of the things that have happened to us and we try to return to that, the idea is that all of those things that happen to us, rather than sort of blending them into something different, it's more like creating a perspective and a shift in them that allows them to blend with that part so it can be seen as a part of our divinity and our worth. But that in order for that to happen, we need to reframe how we look at those events. We need to take those events and
Yes.
those woundings and those things that we have said, this is something bad because I didn't enjoy it, it caused me pain, and I can't stop thinking about it. That in doing that process that I'm doing, it's like taking those things and changing the perspective on them and giving them a place in the whole, a place in our understanding of our divinity and our worth and who we are, where it can still be there. Like maybe it was there to teach us something important or to show us the contrast between that and what we are or whatever it is, but that it doesn't get turned into something else. It just gets repositioned and reframed and
Yes.
then can be an honored part of the whole as what it is, but it's no longer in a position where it's barring the door. It's like a sofa is a wonderful thing, but if it's sitting in front of your doorway and you can't walk through it, it just seems like a giant barrier. But when you take it and you go, oh, really, if we set it in the living room and we put it here, it's a wonderful place to sit. That a lot of the things that have been showing up as boundaries and barriers and issues might be things that just need to be reframed and relocated and repositioned, and in the right position it's no longer causing harm and it's actually seen for the value that it has.
Bingo. He says here, to be truly at peace, we do not eliminate that which does not serve. We integrate it. Otherwise, to go back to the puzzle analogy, there will be a hole in the picture at the end. If we go, this puzzle piece doesn't fit anywhere, it's a problem, it's annoying me, it's an issue, I'm going to get rid of it. then when we do attempt to, our puzzle will never be finished. We just threw away part of it that needs to be understood, even if it's an unpleasant part, so that we can build from there. It says revolution, and I'm not talking about like, um,
Like
the,
revolt against
yes,
anything.
I'm talking about the cycling, revolving, right? Revolution is an attempt at reclamation. And this is really interesting to me because of what we were talking about before we got on the podcasts with spirit, right? So we were talking about the fact that we're going to do the power of story in a mausoleum in the center of a 17-acre cemetery. And we were going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We're going to have this room full of people that are open and vulnerable spiritually. What are we going to do about all of the perhaps wandering through recently deceased who are going to be attracted to the music? Are they going to cause trouble? And what Samael's response to us was, don't worry, I've got it. He gave them a place that they would be. It will be comfortable for them if they stay outside by the steps. They can enjoy the music. It fits in there. There will be times for people to go out and visit them in the cemetery, in their spot, and have their thoughts about family and mortality. We will make an equal exchange of energy with them by asking them to be a witness to the things that we don't want to carry anymore. And we will give them flowers in trade for that energetic work. What Samael essentially did was not say, no, you can't come to our party. Instead, he said, let's figure out where in the party you sit so that everyone feels benefit and energy exchange and meaning, and nobody's boundaries are overstepped. So in that case, there was that, no, they're important and they're here and they have a place at the table. We want to include them in the and. However, we are having an event for the embodied. And we do have to keep in mind that the embodied, they don't want to be and with an with a they don't want to be and with a promiscuous ghost while they're trying to have a meditation. There needs to be a boundary there, an or, right? How do we put in that or state while keeping the larger state welcoming for the dead? And so he figured out where their place would be, where they would be happy and we would be protected. And that's sort of the same thing. So in healing sessions, he's saying what you're feeling is a physical compulsion to blend, to integrate by trying to rotate, right? Revolution is an attempt at reclamation. It's that spinning on the line between blue and yellow to integrate the two, the and and the or, into something beautiful and new, the color green, right? And you go down to a molecular level, there's still blue and yellow in there, but it's indiscernible to us now. But the or found a place within the and where it could function and contribute. And so, exactly what you were saying in healing sessions, I think there is a tendency for not you, but I know for certain other people I know who are healers to say, this was an awful traumatic event and we want to make this go away. Except Samael is fond of telling us that, some wounds never heal. What you have to do is figure out where they can sit so that they are not the sofa blocking the door, but they are still part of your history and they are still part of your learning and your journey in this incarnation. And they still deserve honoring, just like the spirits of the dead that are going to be honored when we get together for the power of story.
It's interesting when I think about the way you're talking about it as a puzzle piece, and that if you throw away that puzzle piece, then you never end up with a complete puzzle because you have a hole in it. And it was making me think, I think when we look at our lives and we look at the things that have happened and the things that we label as traumatic and horrible and are like, that never should have happened, because we see the horror that it created. We see the pain that it created. We see all of the damage that whatever the things were created. Using this puzzle analogy, I think we tend to think of that as like a bunch of debris blew onto our puzzle table, and we're trying to
Yep.
clear that away so that we can put together the puzzle. And I think what it sounds like what Samael is saying is that this isn't debris or something that shouldn't have been there on top of our puzzle that we need to get rid of. They're puzzle pieces, and
Yeah.
they haven't been seen as puzzle pieces. They've been seen as some sort of intrusion that wasn't supposed to be there. It's like the wind blew and a whole bunch of bits of compost or something fell on top of our puzzle, and we're like, no, we need to clean that up so that we can get back to putting together the puzzle. And it
Yes.
makes me think of back, gosh, I don't know how long ago he was saying that we were talking about like the leaves and the petals on the ground, and how nothing happens, nothing is accidental, that everything, I think it was one where we were talking about divine pattern and Metatron and all this stuff, that all of it, that there's not so much as a single petal that has fallen on the ground that is not a part of the whole kind of plan to some extent, like the that happened by accident, that none of it happens by accident. And so I feel like that kind of feeds back into this again, where if we see everything that happened in our lives, no matter how much we wish they hadn't happened because they were so upsetting and felt so terrible, if we taking those things out would be taking out pieces of the puzzle, that there is some reason, there is some value there, that is all a part of who we are, and that because of that we have to see it as a piece of the puzzle that just needs to find its spot, and not as something that shouldn't have been there to begin with. And I think that's where a lot of the difference lies, is the idea that this never should have happened, this never should have been a part of my experience, it was a wrong, bad thing, and therefore it's like it has now screwed up the whole plan, as
Yeah.
opposed to this is actually another piece of it. We just don't understand it from our current limited earthly perspective.
Right. And because we have a tendency to want to put things in boxes and make them go away, we can see this from a definitely from a spiritual standpoint. I mean, I know when I first became pagan, I thought, well, I was raised Catholic and that didn't work out. So that's gone, right? No more of that. And that was when, and you'll remember why I was so surprised when Samael showed up in my life. I think one of the first things I said to you was, boy, is he lost, because I've got this guy talking about the Garden of Eden and I've left all that behind. And what you said was, or maybe there's some things you need to look at. And I went, oh shit, right? Right? Because I didn't want to look at them. I didn't want to see that there were, I'm happy where I am today. I'm so happy. But I had to overcome traumas to get here. And if the traumas didn't exist, I wouldn't be happy right now, because I wouldn't have had to learn to overcome them to get to a state where I am. Like, it's all part of the journey. And so I know a ton of people who say, I'm doing this now, that's gone. But the deeper work is to say, nothing's ever gone. And if I slowly, carefully, in a supported way, and when I have enough self-worth to deal with it, start to pull out these parts of myself that never became integrated and let them out, what could I pull from them that is valuable, that would give me perhaps new perspectives or a way of understanding something that don't currently understand. Um, Samuel is so excited that we're talking about this. He just said, "Wait until I teach you to dance between three states, Umshallah, or four. Not today, Samael.
Oh boy.
Not today."
So, speaking of not today, we continued this conversation for another hour or more after this. And so we will share the rest of this conversation with you next week, where we get even deeper into edges and evolution and going backwards and reclaiming knowledge and lots more. So I'm really excited to be able to continue this conversation with you next week. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week, and we wish you much joy and peace and integration so that you may experience more of your wholeness and divinity. So, I wanted to still share a song to complete this time together. And I feel like the one that may really most resonate right now is one that I have on the Omnivara Bandcamp, and it is called Refuge in the Storm. And it's an energetic transmission of divine support, creating a refuge for you in the storms of life. And it's a channeled collaboration between the Stones of Place that came from Vermont, as well as Archangel Michael and Samael. And the words that came through, which you'll probably know for me by this point, words don't come through for me a lot in songs, but the words that came through in this are all child, are one here. We join your cries until you realize that all are one. So I hope that this has you feeling really supported and held as you walk out into your week. And I can't wait to get back together with you again next week. Oh.